Well, I'm ready to get back at it and paint another fun watercolor. I've got this one for today that we're going to do. You notice it's just a little small one. A lot of times I'll do a 11 by 14, 11 by 15, maybe even bigger. This one's just a 6 by 8. I took a watercolor block and quartered it. And I think I'm going to focus the next several videos, maybe this next series of 8 or 10, whatever it's going to be. I'm just doing little ones. And so this one today is one of my grandsons. He's fishing. He's baiting his own hook. How cool is that? And I just like the pose of his body, that S shape that he's got going on there. And there's appears to be a concentration in his face as he's looking to get it on there. So that's really what it's all about, right there. It's going to be simple. Hopefully, it'll be a fairly fast painting. There's not much transition between the black of his shirt and the dark kind of a navy blue of his pants right here. So we can handle that as one large shape. This fishing pole is actually an extension of that dark shape, if you see that. If we could throw it into grayscale right now, or even break it into like 3 values, you'd find probably his hair, his clothing, his fishing pole, and the darks underneath here are 1 value. And then his skin tones are probably another value. And then, of course, the dock and the water back here and the land are this would probably go with the skin tones here, but this right here would go together. If you can see right over here, they almost that line just almost disappears. So let me zoom the camera in, and then we will get to painting on this. Okay? So I've given some thought as to my approach to this, and if you look on the photograph, there is a bobber. Let me pull this down off of here. I'll set it right there where you can see it. That red and white bobber. I've masked that out. I've masked out the back of his neck here just a little bit because that's where the highlights are at. Really, because this is such an overcast day, I don't need to do that, but I just felt inclined to. I want to keep this light area here, the design on his shirt too, just for an interest, to break up that big shape, that big dark that is there. But I think I want to just start by laying down some cool blues for the water area and basically his flesh tones, and probably have the same flesh tone color down underneath here. So that's where I'm going to start. I'll grab me a brush out of here. We're just going to do this real quick. And I've got a dirty palette over here, but I've got some blues on it. So I'm just going to take my water and start by just wetting it so that I get a nice flow. One thing I like about painting small pictures is you can control the moisture so much better than a large area. Large area, you've got to use a larger brush. With this, you don't have to. Okay, so there we are. That's just damp now. So let me get a little bit of probably a cobalt blue here is what I'm shooting for. See what it does. And I'm just gonna kind of lay that in. Kind of dirty and grungy, but you know what a day like that is? Dirty and grungy. We can blue it up a little more if we want. And it can go over his really everything. I'm focusing on the water, the dock, and the dark shapes that we talked about earlier. But get right in there. But when I hit it here in just a minute with this flesh tones, that should push it out. Let me grab another brush, and I'm going to use probably right now some Core Transparent Pyro Orange, grayed down a little bit with some of that blue. And I just want to take and pop it in here in his hair. If you notice, his hair is not, it's kind of a sandy blonde, I guess. So we'll start with that, and that's also the flesh tone in his face. If you want to throw a little bit of a rosiness in there, you can. There's a little bit of a permanent magenta, I think it is. Permanent rose. Actually, I'm putting it in his hair up there. It needs to go down there, I guess, but that's okay. So you see it's starting to take shape, getting the feel of it. Do the same thing down here. There's his legs. Let me put a little bit of that pink in there just to knock that down. Whew, way too much. So we're gonna need to knock it down. I hate it when that happens when I'm filming. Keep it nice and wet, and you got time to work with stuff. Time to make changes. You know, I think the big takeaway here is you see how it just got out of control real quick there. Now I got a little mark right there. But what I want you to realize is that I'm not panicking over that. I'm just thinking, okay, well, I'm going to be covering this up down in underneath here and between there between his legs and over here. That's going to get dark, so it's going to cover all that anyway. And some of this bleed is really desirable, so don't be afraid of that. Okay, now I'm going to try to lay in some of that, just more of that dock. It's not dock. It's actually concrete, I guess. Come up around his shoes here. So by spreading that around, you can see that's trying to dry on me. But by bringing that flesh tone down into the concrete there, it adds some harmony to it. Let's put a little bit of pink in there just to further harmonize it. Colors aren't near as important as the value. You've heard me talk about that before. Constant battle trying not to match color for color, but rather just value and feeling of it. Okay, so back here, right up here, I didn't forget that in my sketch, but it's there. That's the concrete line. This is a ramp to load boats on. Okay, so now I can take and add a little bit, put just a little more up in here. Take the value of his face here just a little bit darker. I do want to try to control it there, because his face, there does need to be a sharp contrast line there, so I'm working to control that. So for those of you that know that I get on to you about using hard edges too much, you can use all the hard edges you want right there. That's what controls the viewer's eye where they look. Okay, get a little more of that red here. And just come right along the back of his leg there because it's kind of in shadow. Isn't that interesting? Right here where I messed up, just so happens, if you could see in the photo, there is a muscle. Just a slight shadow of a muscle there, so that's going to work to my advantage. So, yay me. Okay, oh, you know what I'm forgetting here? My goodness. You're probably thinking, what kind of idiot are you? Forgot all about his arm. I didn't have that line drawn in there. So I'm making several good mistakes this morning. Try to control that there, keep it fairly light right now. Again, one contrast between the water and his hand, contrast between the water and his face. So, and then lastly, got his toes down here, and there's some. Let's just get some color going in the sandals while they're wet. Grab some blue here. See how this plays out. I don't usually do this at this stage of the game, but let's find out how it works. Okay. All right, I'm going to let that dry, and then we will get back to it, see what we can do with it. Looks like there might be something wonky with my paper right here. I'm not sure what's going on. Not quite sure what's going on there. Like the sizing is messed up. So anyway, there we go. Give me something that looks about like that. We'll let this dry, and I'll come back in a few minutes. It's still damp. The humidity out here in my studio right now is just super high, and the temperature's probably 80 degrees, 78, 80 degrees. So it's taken a while for it to dry, but this is it's dry enough where I can begin building upon what's in the photograph here, and it's not going to hurt anything. So, with that said, I'm going to take my little small brush here, and I think I'll start. Maybe I'll start in his face, intensify that just a little bit. Again, some of that pinkish color. Trying to build a variance between his face and the background, and making this a gradient as it goes across here. If you look in your photo, you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm going to drop a little bit of the core transparent pyro orange in there to give it some life. And then you got his ear back here. And I want to handle that very simply. I don't want to get all the little nuances. Ears are really tough to paint because they can get overworked so easily. Now let's kick just a little more pink in there, just a little bit. And I'm not even so much concerned about making this look like my grandson. It's not a portrait of him. It's a portrait of the scene, the moment. That's what I'm trying to capture here, just that feeling. And so just working my way towards that. I'm gonna get up into his hair now. So I see blue in there, but I also see some orange. So I'm going to start with a kind of a base of orange, which I know that doesn't look orange, but it's this gray that I've mixed up. It leans a lot closer to orange than the darker version of it. I see all kinds of colors. I see violets and pinks and purples in there. So just going to bring it down here, utilizing this color to kind of moisten the paper, prime the pump, so to speak, so that I can come in with these darker colors like that. I'm going to get some of this blue here so you see the attributes of it. And in his forehead, his hair, there are some little areas that it separates, and you can see the water through them. So I just want to catch, I really see two of them. They're just little, almost insignificant things, but they help make it believable. So you just get a couple of minutes, just something like that right there. Okay, so a little more blue. I'm going to put some violet in here in just a minute. The hair is, although it's dark, it's got a lot of blue in the top because it's catching, it's reflecting the sky that is above it. Kind of straighten up that right there a little. So this is something you really want to work on having fun with. See where it's trying to run down in his face here a little bit? And that's okay. I can come in and straighten that up here in a little bit. As long as I don't lose the line of his nose and such. And you can take this however far you want it to go. By that I mean you can make this your own picture. You know, if you want to just kind of obscure his face there, that's fine. That won't hurt a thing. You know, I wrestled whether I should do a little painting like this, like we're doing, or if I should do the larger, more traditional. And part of me thinks it's faster, you know, it's a small painting, you can do it quicker, but really small ones take as long or longer than a big one. Because you can't get in there, you know, you can't just freewheel and move fast, you gotta slow down. All right, so I'm gonna, while that's his face and hair and everything there is drying, I'm gonna move on to his shirt, and I'm gonna start with some blue. And again, this is just kind of acting as the vehicle to deliver the paint right now. I get this base color down, and then I'm going to start putting the appropriate darks in it. And when I come around his face here, because his face is wet, that dark is going to wick up to some degree into his face, which is okay. You look at the photograph, that's what it's doing. His chin is almost obscured there. And that's the key. See, you know, losing edges here, there, and yonder. See, as I'm looking at this, it's already coming out pretty good. I like what's happening here. Gotta be careful, watch that, because that's gonna want to run on me right there. You see how I just picked that up with the tip of my brush and took care of that. You know, we want this just to be a fun little piece, just a little exercise and understanding how the paint goes on. Okay, I'm gonna come right across here. That's about where his sleeve is at. I didn't get that line drawn in, if you recall, but it's not that critical. And then here is his back of his elbow. I'm going to pick up some raw sienna. I haven't, this new color for this painting. So far I've used cobalt, and I've used core transparent pyro orange, and I've used permanent magenta, and now I'm adding some raw sienna. I think that's it. But up here in the black of his shirt, I see this yellowish color. And remember, this is going to get covered up much darker, but I want to get that essence in there. Oop. Little rascal took off running there. You can see where all the moisture is at, can't you? And again, like I said, we're not matching color for color here. We're just maybe value for value is a better way to put it. So, and don't hesitate to step back occasionally, take a look at it, see how things are going. And I think these are going pretty good. Still in the process of laying out the values. Remember, big shapes. There's not much difference between the shirt and the shorts and the fishing pole and the shadows. Okay, he's coming along good here. Interesting, I can tell by just the way the paint is moving that his shorts, where that I'm painting right now, are still damp from that first coating a little while ago. Okay, so you see it's starting to come on here. And now I'm gonna carry this down. Now that's the dock of the bay right there. Go over here and get his fishing pole. Pretty wet in that area, but that's okay. If it kind of obscures out, that's fine, because that's not where I want the viewer to be looking anyway. Lay this in under here. Maybe leave a little edge catching the light there on the bottom of that dock thing that he's sitting on. Take this over. Okay, we're getting pretty close here. I want to get his sandals and stuff popping out here. And then this goes like so. And that shadow kind of fades out there. Just really study your photo if you want to learn to paint good. Observation is the thing. It's all about observation. Okay, now I'm gonna come right here. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there. Let me put that in. It's real gingerly. And right back here too. Okay. That added a lot right there. It just kind of gave it, attached it all together. So good job, me, and we'll be back in just a little bit. Let it dry. I think I'll let it dry fully this time, and then we'll see where we go from there. So there's step 2 for you. Give me something that looks like that. Well, we're gaining ground pretty good. Stepping back to take a fresh look at it and see what it needs. Again, the more I look at the painting, the more I think what I'm seeing is just the essence. It's not a portrait of my grandson. It is just a young boy caught in a moment, concentrating on getting that worm on his hook, and that's what it's all about. So I think I want to clutter it with too much detail. Just want to continue to develop some darks in it, and I think we'll put that red bobber in. It's going to add a lot to it. So with that said, let's push on. I'll start up in his hair again up here and try to get something good there that'll finish that aspect of it out. Get a little more blue. You can probably hear my palette beating around over here. It's a metal folding palette. Okay, so I'm gonna again come in now. I'm gonna try to get the hairline here in there, and I don't want to get too caught up in it. I want to leave a few of these little bits of light popping through. Traffic going by outside the studio. You probably heard that. My apologies. Again, just studying the subtle nuances of change in his hair. Trying to think of them and treat them as large shapes, but at the same time give them they play an important role, so you want to get them right, but you don't want to get them overly done. Grab me a little bit of blue now and just drop in there like that. not too much. I'm just kind of dropping it in. Let it morph on its own. Let the gravity pull it down. His hairline looks a little heavy right now, but I think it's going to go. It'll lighten up and be much more appropriate here in just a little bit. This right here, getting too many small shapes in there, so let's knock that out. And I'm not really a big fan of that, what I got going there. Okay, I'll call that acceptable there. All right. So I'm gonna switch blues here. I'm gonna try something. I want to get that dark of his shirt. So I probably shouldn't switch colors. I just don't know if I can get dark enough with what I'm wanting to do here. I'm experimenting off camera here. So I'll tell you if I get what I'm looking for. I'll let you know. I'm trying to mix up a rich dark. I could use a neutral tint, which is a black, but I just stay away from that. So I'm taking right now cobalt blue, that magenta I've been using, and the orange, putting them together, and that gives me a dark, but maybe not as dark as I want it to be. I'm going to start with that. We'll see what we get here. So here's you can see yeah, that's going to be a pretty good dark. That'll probably work. It's all relational. And you want to catch the softness of the shape of his face right there. So carefully paint that in there. Yeah, that's starting to work now. Little subtle lip around his lips there. And then it comes up. That may be a little moist right there. I don't usually like to paint this tight, but for, again, working on such a small piece, you've got to use a little brush and paint slow and paint tighter. There we go. There. Looking good. I think that dark is going to be sufficient. Okay, and as I get away from his face, I want to try to loosen this up a little bit. So I'm going to try a few things here. Pull this down into his fishing pole. Just like that. I think that works pretty good. Bring this on down. Okay. And that actually comes across like so. And the back of his calf right here. Although this is big dark shape, there are subtleties in it, and so I'm trying to get that right now. So I've got a little bit of phthalo blue here because that his pants are a little different color, and if I go with that solid all the way, I could, but it's going to be a little stressful on your mind looking at it. So I'm just using some almost pure phthalo blue here, and that's doing a pretty good job. Doing a pretty good job. You can see the value in his flesh is getting light now that I'm up against this dark, so I'm going to have to modify that. Study those curves of his body there as the way the fabric wraps around it. Okay, coming along. Now I'm going to kick in some of this dark here. And carry it on down, because it just morphed from the back of his leg. Really, this style of painting, what I'm doing right now, is kind of like you could almost term it herding livestock, because I'm coaxing and manipulating the paint to move slowly in the direction I want, with more and less water depending on what my need is at the time. Awful strong contrast there. We're gonna have to work on that. So under here, just throwing a little bit of raw sienna in there. Grab a little raw sienna. There's any number of ways you could go about, or the order of painting this. You could do it a lot of different ways. So you don't necessarily have to do it in the order that I'm doing it. Matter of fact, when I'm teaching on camera like this, I slow the process down and actually alter it from the way I would normally do it, just to make it a little more manageable for artists who may not be as fluent in the medium. Because this is all about teaching you how I do it, how I approach it. That's awful dark. There's something wonky on that side of that. I think the paint or the paper has lost its size there, which that means it just absorbs more than it should. And that happens occasionally. You know, something damages it, or maybe it's just a bad piece of paper from the mill, or what's terrible is when you get a bad block, or the whole batch is no good. I've got a block like that, and I've tried to throw it out. I have thrown it out a few times, and I dig it back out of the trash and think, you know, I can use that for something. Oftentimes for you know, like maybe paint acrylics on it, gesso it or something, because it's archival. It just doesn't have the size on it, and it costs way too much to throw it away. Okay, so he's coming along there. couple other things I want to do before I get too far down the road. Got these little marks in the dock back here. Not overly excited with them right there. Okay, we need to jazz up his flesh a little bit. He's not been out in the sun enough, it looks like. So I'm mixing up a thin batch of Core Transparent Pyro Orange, some of that permanent magenta that I've been using, and I'm going to just start in. Actually, his face up here is pretty good. It's just his lower extremities that are crying out for a little help here. So we'll start with that, and I'm going to take and lighten this up here and run it up against that blue, and I'm hoping that blue will actually bleed in a little bit. A little more of that pink. The back side of his legs here, where they turn, are catching light, so they're more illuminated than other portions of him. I'm going to lose these edges down here. Pulling color from that. See if I can pull some of that background color into his leg there. That orange is just a little darker than I'm wanting, but I guess I may have to live with it now. I don't know. Deepen this whole leg up here, get some more flesh tone going there. See something I missed right here. Let's get this, make his flip-flop stand out. Actually, he calls them slides. I'm probably from another generation, I guess. Okay, and I do not want to get caught up in details in his hands here, you know, putting fingers in and all that stuff. You don't need them, you just need the little bit of that shadow area that where the hands come together. Adding just a touch of of raw sienna in there. Kind of lighten his hands up as I get out here. And I'm going to put just a little pop of blue in there. I think that was a little dab of phthalo blue. Just kind of trying to round it out here. I don't want to lose those hard edges. These are name brand flip-flops there, or slides. You can see the identifier on them, so I'll just give an impression of that. I'm not trying to get all the pattern that's on there, just something that looks appropriate, something colorful. So he's coming along pretty good. Kind of a fun little piece. I haven't quite figured out what I want to do back here. This dock is not reading. Right to here, like it's totally lost there, and it's really totally lost in the photo. Don't know if I need to do something more in the water back there. You just gotta kind of figure this stuff as you go. Something's off in my drawing right there. His arch needs to be more pronounced, or a little more believable, I guess. A little shadow underneath his slides to anchor them down. that. I'm going to grab a color called Red Hot Mama. It's like a scarlet or whatever. It's an American Journey color. And put that in for the bottom half of that bobber. And the little top half there. Just trying to get some definition there to just to verify that he is sitting on something. I think I'm going to cheat here. I'm just going to step back and look at the picture in the camera, because that gives you a much better understanding of what it's going to look like to the viewer and what the finished painting looks like. Somehow it just kind of frames it in. I can't explain it to you, but it does. I think what I'm going to do is just glaze some of that earthy tone, the raw sienna that's on the ground, up onto the top of that dock, just to break it up from the, even though it's a metal dock, a galvanized dock that is the same color as the water, it's not quite working. So I want to just take and do that real quick. Might make the picture, it might kill the picture, I don't know, but we're going to find out. And just, you know, just a little hint of it, not much. It's just going to be a barrier that's going to break it up from the rest of it there. And I think that helps. I think that helps. Okay, I was looking here. I didn't really finish out his hands. He's got some darks right in here, the shadow area, where his fingers are working with that fish hook. Trying to lose that edge there just a little bit so it doesn't become the focus. Pull that in there a little bit. Pull this down a little bit right here. Anchor them to it. Just got to take your time. I'm a believer that you probably get more by me just. I know I've asked this question before in live classes, and people say, "Yeah, we love to hear you talk." But I think if a situation like this, if I just kind of quiet down and let you listen, or let you observe, you can focus more on my approach to it. Little subtle difference there. Very subtle, very subtle. Just okay, getting dangerously close to doing too much. So if you've got a son or a son or daughter, grandson, granddaughter, child you love, think highly of, this is a good thing to do. This would be a good lesson for you if you want to do a painting of them. Just take your time, and you can do a great job on it. Yeah, just keep noodling away, Spencer, till you ruin it. That's what I'm good at, noodling. All right. I'm pretty sure I'm going to just call that done. It's doing what I set out to make it do, and that's just kind of tell the story of the moment. And that's really what we're all about as artists, is just help people experience life through our eyes. Help them experience life through our eyes, see the world as we see it, what we find interesting. Just trying to get a few of these representation of some of the folds of the fabric here. I don't want to get too carried away with it. Sleeve goes back there. Dark over here. A dark here to separate the one leg from the other there. A little dark right there. You know, I just keep seeing places where value should change. It's really what it's all about. Kick a little blue in there, cool that down underneath there. Of course, it'll lighten up when it dries. All right, well, I think it's time to call it done. I need to let it dry and pull this masking fluid off here. You can see that coming off there. There's that little bobber. So that's where we're gonna leave it right there. I'll have to sign it here in just a little bit. So I've had a lot of fun doing this. The picture obviously means something to me because it's my grandson. I hope you'll give it a try, just to get in the practice, if for no other reason. And then get this tape off here. And it may inspire you then to take a picture, you know, of a, like I said, a grandchild, or maybe a child, you know, whoever is important in your life, and do a painting of them. There it goes. Let me do a little side by side here. You know I like to do that. So it's worked out pretty good. Let me give you a suggestion when look for a context in the photograph that you're going to work from. Like, you know, I could just do a quick portrait of him, and that's okay. But just the fact, I've caught a moment in his childhood that is really, it's going to be cherished. Hopefully, years from now, he'll probably always remember that time, that first day that we took him out fishing. And I know he had a good time that day, caught himself a couple of little fish, and he really enjoyed it. So that's burned into his mind. Now it's been captured in a painting that can become a family heirloom. You know, probably down the road, this painting will end up in his home whenever he's a grown man and out on his own. Well, at least I hope it will. But I've documented a moment in his childhood, and I've got another grandson. I've got another photo of him fishing from a couple days after this one, and I might try to do that for the next one. Just from my end, to do a painting of each of my grandsons, and for your benefit to see how you can do a different approach to painting a fishing scene, actually. The other one, this is on a very overcast day, just getting ready to storm, and boy did it storm that day. The other one is a sunny afternoon on a big lake surrounded by green trees, and if I remember right, he's kind of framed in by the trees. So I think that it'll be the same subject, two different approaches to it, and that's worth a lot in my estimation to give you the understanding of that. So anyway, so glad that you were able to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you took something away from it. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Meagher, MEAGHER 61 at gmail.com. I welcome your email. My website's spencermeagher.com. Go there and check out my other paintings and stuff, and other video tutorials that you can buy through Monday Watercolor Remote. And so anyway, hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll be back in a day or two. We'll paint another one, okay? Thanks a lot. You have a great summer.